Greetings. Welcome to the Dragon Con Urban Fantasy Track discussion of Wynonna Earp Vengeance. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm very excited to get to speak to people about this very interesting and I want to call it fun movie. There were some parts of it that maybe weren't as fun as we would have hoped, but we will discuss all that. And I didn't get my Kleenex. Does anybody else have Kleenex that they have, nearby? So, we all might need some of that. But I do want to thank everyone who is watching right now with us. I want to thank you for being here. And if you do want to interact with us, if you will sign into StreamYard, you are able to make comments and also answer the questions if you like. And we will include those in our discussion tonight. So, but the very first thing we're going to do is have everyone introduce themselves. And just briefly, I'm the director of the Dragon Con Urban Fantasy Track, and I'm just delighted to have these wonderful people with me. And Kevin, we'll go ahead and get started with you.
Hello, everyone. Kevin Batchelder here. I am Carol's second on the Urban Fantasy Track and longtime Dragon Con attendee and panelist and Wynonna Earp podcaster and panel moderator and all. So looking forward to talking about all kinds of things tonight.
Okay, wonderful. Marks.
Yeah, Mark's Pyle. I'm an author, filmmaker, podcaster, and I write urban fantasy. So I love everything urban fantasy, and I've been on Dragon Con Urban Fantasy talking about Supernatural and Buffy quite a bit. And yeah, excited to talk about Wynonna Earp.
Thank you. Okay, Diana.
Hi, I'm D.R. Perry. I'm a YA urban fantasy author, but I read and watch a lot of adult urban fantasy and horror too. So really love doing the fan panels.
And I'm so glad you do. Thank you. And Lisa.
Hey, I'm Lisa Manifold. I write paranormal and romance and all the subgenres that I love in between those. I am a huge Wynonna Earp fan. I am a huge Doc Holliday fangirl. So this was like just made for me. And I was so, I'll just say excited to come and talk to you guys about this.
Well,
and so right there.
Yeah, so is Leah. She said she's so excited about this panel. Thank you. We're excited that you're here. We appreciate that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to address first was kind of like your first impressions of kind of the look of the show without delving too deeply into some of the other aspects of it, which we are going to do this evening. But one of the things that struck me immediately was how different it looked to me. And I don't understand all the fine points of a lot of production stuff, but I can tell when it's different, if that makes sense. And it seemed as though, the filming of it was just a lot more visceral than what a lot of what we had seen, in the series itself. And so it really was a kind of just a big glaring thing to me at first. I was kind of like, whoa, I need to back up a little and not get too close to this, that kind of thing. But I noticed that by the second viewing, it didn't quite strike me as much. And there was a few weeks in between the first and second viewings. But what I wanted to ask you guys was, did you also have that impression, or am I completely out of my mind? Both could be true. But what, in regards to this question, Kevin, what did you think?
Well, I mean, as we know, as time goes on, shows are shot on film or digitally, and the cameras and all those things change. Mm-hmm. So it's been, 3+ years or so, and we've moved from a network, if you will, like sci-fi to a streamer. So I was expecting some visual differences just by that simple progression of time. But obviously, like all of us here on this panel, being the big fan of the content, it didn't take more than a few seconds just to feel right at home right off the bat. I mean, Emily, the showrunner, Emily Andrus, obviously, who wrote this, takes us right in with the purgatory sign just to let us know right off the bat we're right where we want to be. So that made me feel very much at home, got the heart skip a beat or two and go, yeah, we got new Earp for the first time in several years. But,
Yeah.
So I can't say that it really looked or felt much different once we got a few seconds in and started hearing, all the characters in their usual styles, and it felt very much like home.
Okay. Marks.
It didn't feel too dramatically different for me. I guess it was a little bit jarring at first, but I was trying to look and see, who the director and DP and everything was. So the directors did a lot of Earp, but Wynonna Earp stuff. But the DP looks like they're a new person, the cinematographer. That might contribute a little bit to a different look and different choices, and maybe they got a slightly bigger budget too for the amount of time they're filming in this as a movie. So you can play, you get more time to play with your angles and stuff.
Right.
But I think, it once they got going with it for a while, like Kevin, it started to feel a lot like the show kind of back again, a lot of the banter and everything. So
Right. Once you get into that flow.
Yep.
Diana?
I do feel like you did, but it wasn't, it was like, oh, this is really a movie.
Oh,
I got
okay.
excited. I was like less jarred and more like, oh, and I guess some of this comes from my kid is a huge anime fan, and like the way, and like Marks was saying about angle, different. So there's like a different visual feel to everything when it's a movie. And so the excitement of, oh, this isn't just another episode, this is like a full-on movie, that's like kind of like a point of excitement for me. I was like, oh, what are they going to do? Are the fight scenes going to be bigger? Is there going to be maybe more drama with the costuming? And there absolutely was in that casino scene, right? That Wynonna makes her entrance. So I really feel like they did did it as a movie. They weren't shooting it like an extended episode. Sometimes it felt like more like a film movie than a made for TV or made for streaming movie.
Oh, okay. Lisa.
There was definitely a difference. And I think Diana said it well. It was a difference between an extended episode and like a movie. And it felt very, I don't know, I guess it's because it's been a while, like I've watched some of the previous seasons. But I felt like I was dropped right back into it. I'm like, whoa. And it was sort of, like you dropped right back into action, and I didn't know how it was going to start, whether it was going to be right in the middle of the action or, but it was a little like, it felt a little different. And then as I got caught up in the characters, I didn't notice it anymore.
Right. It just struck me that I wanted to find out if I was, like, is it just me who had that feeling? So I'm like, I've got to ask the others on the panel. Now, my next question surrounds a quote from Nicole when they were sitting around the table trying to do some planning when she's with Waverly and Doc and Wynonna, and she says, quote, "It feels less like a reunion and more like a reboot." Now, I know, that's supposed to be a clue for us. And so my question for you is, do you agree or disagree with that statement? How do you feel about that? And Marks?
Yeah, I feel like there's a little wink to the audience, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Have they announced there's going to be more, or I'm not sure.
Not
It feels
officially.
like,
I don't think so yet.
yeah, I mean, they feels like they're planning on more, right? Hopefully after the ending. So,
Yeah, hopefully.
so I do feel like maybe it felt like a little bit of reboot, like they're gonna do, like they at least hope to do a series of movies and such. So, which is pretty popular in streaming. At least with Hallmark and stuff. My wife watches quite a few of those mystery movies and series of romance movies. So why not sci-fi fantasy? Let's do it. So
Sure, why not?
yeah. So hopefully will be, because I feel like they set up a lot of stuff to continue moving forward, and it does feel like the energy and stuff was a little bit refresh and a reboot and continuation of the story.
Okay, Diana.
While I certainly hope that there is more here, reboot, I mean, she said it feels like a reboot, and I think that's because of some of the differences in certain I think aesthetics for some of the characters. But I feel like it's not, I wouldn't call this a reboot. I'd call it a revival, certainly. A reboot, I think of a reboot as something like, oh, it's been like 25 years and now we're going to recast everybody, or we're going to have this be about their kids. And it's certainly not.
Not that.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Revival.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Oh, revival's a good one. Okay. Lisa?
So I actually took that a little bit differently. When she says it feels like a reboot, like to me, a reboot is to start over and do better again the next time. And if you think about the first 4 seasons, like there was some trial and error in how they approached things. And this to me felt much more like, okay, we have a problem, whatever the problem is. And because of the experience that they had, they were much less trial and error and much more, it felt like they were more sure of how they were going to proceed, because it's kind of like, okay, we've been there, we've done well, we've maybe made some mistakes, and like that's how it felt more to me. Like when she said this is a reboot, that's where my head went with reboot, that okay, we've done this, let's start over like we have done before, but this time we actually know what we have to do, like our path is clear.
Right. Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, this is one of those fun lines with a writer like Emily, as everyone else has been saying, that you get to take it the way you want to, whether it has to do with the traditional meaning of those terms, or how the characters are acting, or in this case, in this story, she very much had to make this story in this movie something that brand new fans who've never seen the series could get into. So there had to be a lot of setup, whether it's dialogue or location, to make it approachable to even folks who weren't long-standing fans. So then, what do can you call it a reunion if you've never seen it before? You can have some fun there. And also from within the story itself, the fact that this wasn't kind of, shall we say, your same old type of villain that Peacemaker could take care of. You had a new situation. So yeah, to that point, it is more like a reboot, meaning we've got a new situation to deal with. We just have a reunion of the characters to do it.
Okay. Yeah. I just thought that it was such a pointed comment. I was thinking she's got to have a double meaning here.
Well,
Because,
Emily, sometimes it's triple meanings too.
Yeah,
so.
that's true. I should have figured out that it was not just double.
Emily's also very good at Easter egging, so she dropped something that could be an Easter egg. And I don't know if this is like a good, never mind. I'll bring that up later. I think Carol will probably ask that. So I figured, because I went back and watched it, I was like, oh, maybe that's an Easter egg too. Like that went into my list of potential Easter eggs.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, we'll have to get to that. And Kevin, you're up now.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have some fun here getting to ask some questions so Carol can be a panelist. But one of the things that certainly Earp is known for, and we got a lot of it in the movie, is a lot of great character pairings. Not just the whole team, but just a set of 2 characters on screen that can just create such great chemistry, whether romantic or otherwise. We certainly know many of the regular ones we see over and over, certainly, Waverly and Nicole, Doc and Wynonna and so forth. But in this movie, we had at least, I think, when I lost count, 8 or 9 different times we had 2 characters interacting, some that don't often have great interaction. So I was curious if folks had some one-on-one scenes that really stuck out to them between characters, whether it's regular ones you always love seeing or some new dynamics, if they came to mind for you. You know, did you have a favorite? So, Carol, we'll let you start first.
Oh, I go first. Oh my gosh. I would say that I really enjoyed the moment when Wynonna and Waverly came back, or when they were had awoken from being passed out. I think after the wake and their discussion. But I also really liked the one between Doc and Waverly. Because I think with people open up to Waverly pretty easily, and I think that's probably why she appears in both of those scenes that to me really uh, you know meant a lot. And I'm assuming that you mean kind of these interactions that involve just the two of them and not other people around, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those were the two that I think were probably the most poignant for me.
Any marks?
I mean, one of the most memorable ones was the opening, right, with Mercedes and Sheriff. So, and because I think that was kind of unexpected. When I first saw the boots, I'm like, oh no, he's gonna die, and then they reveal who it is, and they're like, oh no, it's her, okay, and then the villain pops up like, oh no, one of these people or maybe both are gonna die. But it was interesting to see the dynamics between them, and then the fishing and all that stuff before as they led up to that the final beginning of the episode. Because you don't see Mercedes. I mean, Mercedes is a recurring character, but she doesn't get a whole lot of scenes with different people, and so it was an interesting way to send her off and an unexpected dynamic between the two characters.
Right. And you have several people that agree with you, but yes, Dean got in there first and pointed out Nedley and Mercedes, and some other folks agreed. So that was, and I agree with you that it was unexpected, and that was part of the appeal of that. And Diana? Oh, I'm sorry. It's you're up, Kevin.
No,
Sorry.
you're on a roll. Go right ahead, Carol.
Old habits die hard, man.
So yeah, I agree with Dean. Go Dean. You're awesome. You're spot on. That was what I was going to say. But I thought that was an unexpected and very cool dynamic. And to see the two of them bonding over fishing, of all things, especially when you don't expect Mercedes to want anything to do with fishing. And she has a special lure and everything. And I just loved that she takes this case out, and I'm just like, oh, it's going to have something in it to smoke, she's going to take a smoke out. No, I'm just like, oh man,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it looks like a makeup bag, but little, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I got mad that she died because that was so cool, right? I still would have been mad that she died, I gotta admit, because she's just like, this endearingly kind of like annoying character that keeps coming back. But I really appreciated that moment. The other thing, I just liked Nedley in general, and he did get a lot of time with the other characters, which during the show he didn't. So pretty much every interaction he had, I think, was like a bonus add-on to that first scene.
Okay.
At least Mercedes didn't lose her face. Face is still there.
I know. This time she got to keep her face.
Yep.
She saved face.
Lisa?
I also agree with the Nedley and Mercedes, although I live in a very small town. And so for me, even though that interaction was very unexpected, these are not the two characters that you expect to see hanging out together. I love the fact that the ice fishing trailer is illegal. That just tickles me. But because it's a small town, your choices for socialization are limited. And so people tend to pair up in ways you don't expect, which I loved about that. The other one that I really loved was anytime we saw Wynonna and Nicole together, because now that they're no longer, well, they were in a chaotic situation, but they've had enough time where chaos was not on their daily menu. So new patterns have emerged, and they haven't obviously been together. So they are rubbing them together the wrong way. Like, I really liked them working to find their way towards a new relationship. And then finally, and this isn't quite in the question, but sort of, I loved Doc and Wynonna, and when they would have an argument and then go their separate ways and we'd be left with just one of them, like the way that they showed you their dysfunction in their relationship, it came like you could see it in that they were fighting, but then you saw it in how they were like sort of talking to themselves, or verbalizing out loud about what just happened when they were on their own. So it was usually after an interaction, and then the interaction didn't go the way that one or the other wanted it to go. And now we see just one character sort of musing or talking or grumbling about what didn't go right or how they would have liked things to, well, there was some grumbling.
Oh yeah, no, I love that. I love that term.
Well, I love that Wynonna left a note like knifed to the pillow. It wasn't pinned to the pillow. It wasn't set on the dresser. It was stuck in the pillow with a knife, which it says a lot to me. But I loved seeing that because it showed you that even after all this time, they're still trying to work through their relationship.
Yeah, and that it seemed as though, at least from that scene, it seemed as though we were, that it's kind of the way it was in the past, but maybe a little bit toned down in terms of they probably stopped themselves before whichever one of them it was who was offending the other at any given time. If that was an example, it's kind of like they stopped themselves before they said something that would be too far, that they would be really regret. What's
like
that?
both of them were very good at verbally pushing others away, but neither one of them was running away either. Like, for whatever reason, they were hanging together, but it wasn't moving along smoothly. It was moving along in fits and starts.
Gotcha. Now we have a lot of people who've been engaging here, and Leah said she likes the Doc and Waverly, interactions, and I agree. And there are a lot of, now this one is kind of funny. I had no idea. Donna tells us that Danny Kind, the actress who plays Mercedes, said that she loves to fish. So, okay, now we know, because it's, I mean, we all know that they are not their characters, but it might be an example of one of those things where she's like, hey, maybe she even pitched the idea of, hey, maybe I should go fishing with him and with Nedley. So who knows? But anyway, but I wanted to add some of those in. And we will have, I'm going to put this up here because we are going to get to this topic in a bit, but this person's, I'm going to butcher the name, so that's why I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but everybody can see it. I hope the audiobooks get into how the Nedley Mercedes friendship came around. And that's a good point. And we will talk about that in a little bit later in our discussion. Now, since we're talking about characters, did you feel as though the movie was staying true to the characters, that their that their portrayals in this movie were what we would expect from what we saw? And it really has been 3.5 years, Kevin? Has it been that long? I didn't think it was quite that long, but oh my goodness. Or
between airings, yes. I mean,
yeah, and
showtime was a little shorter.
Right. And if there were a lot of changes within certain characters? Or are they things that you feel as though could be explained by, the break that there was in between, the one, the end of the series and when the events of the movie begin? It's supposed to be 2 years. So just how did you feel about the character portrayals and how they were done? And Diana, it's time for you to go first.
I thought like most everybody was like it was like a reasonable expectation for how they'd be. Nedley kind of being like, okay, I'm retired, but what do I do with myself now? Waverly having a million hobbies because she's bored and doesn't want to admit it. Like, that makes sense. Wynonna and Doc out being miscreants together. Like, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
And I think like the progression that we saw with them makes sense for where they stayed and what they were doing all that time. And when something struck me as like, ooh, why? That's why, because at first I was like, why does Waverly have all these hobbies? Oh, they gave us a reason. And I think that's really the most important thing. You can change how a character is after we haven't seen them for a while. And I write like multiple series in the same world, and I have characters come back from previous series. And, people haven't seen them in their universe. It's been like 4 or 5 years. Okay. So, that's important. And that's something I notice in a situation like this. When you have a character and they've changed in some way, you have to let the readers or the audience know why. And I think this movie did a very good job of that.
Okay.
So I think everybody kind of, they did make sense with where they went with them. The only thing I had a complaint about was the antagonist, who kind of just came out of nowhere.
Well, technically from hell, but that's okay. No,
well, yes, but her backstory as a human came out of nowhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I feel like there wasn't really any kind of nothing to link her to, not much to link her to Wynonna. There was the foster home was mentioned, but it really, like, kind of maybe not enough. And I guess they had to connect the movie somewhere. But I was really a little bit confused at first who this was.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa.
I thought they did a really great job. I agree with Diana that they did a great job about explaining Waverly. Like, I remember thinking when I'm seeing the loom and all the things, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, this is not Waverly. But she was bored. And I felt like Nicole was trying to get them back to some idea of normalcy after all the chaos that they had been going through. And so they were both trying really hard to make this like a normal, happy, married life. Even though that it may not be who they are. The one that I thought was really interesting was Doc and Wynonna, when Doc says, he doesn't ever want her to get bored of him, that he worries that she's going to get bored. And I think he's talking to either Waverly. I think he's talking to Waverly. And she's like, oh, the great Doc Holliday. And he's like, I would like to just be Henry. That like hit me right in the heart. Interesting. I do want to touch on something Diana said about the villain. I thought the villain was interesting in that it wasn't a direct connection to Wynonna. It was a byproduct of some crazy stuff that she did when she was young. And, when you're young, you do. Am I back? There I am. Okay.
Yeah, there you are.
Sorry about that, guys. Unless you see that your actions have a direct impact on somebody else, you don't even think about it. Like, that's how I looked at her. She was something that happened that Wynonna didn't even think about. And then all these years later, she popped up and Wynonna's like, oh my God, where did you come from?
You? Yeah, that was the reaction. Yeah. You?
How do you have anything to do with this? But it was because of something that Wynonna did, and she didn't realize the impact of it. Like, I thought that's more where they were going with that one.
Okay. Kevin.
Oh, I absolutely thought they were true to the original characters, because it was very much, for me as a TV viewer, especially when we're used to getting years with a character, many seasons, multiple episodes. I think most of us, after a while, we watch or keep watching a show because we love that character from where they started. We have those memories of who they were. And sometimes when they start to change, as we all do, folks aren't comfortable with that. There's a discomfort there with the fact this is not the same old fill-in character name here. Things have evolved. So part of me as a viewer really appreciates how true to life it was now, since we're a couple of years later. Some relationships are evolving in a good way. Some are having some rockier times. Some are just the way they were when we left them 2+ years ago. So, but that doesn't mean that there also weren't many scenes where I just, did a little fist pump in the air because I got to see the character I love doing what they've always done,
Right.
And as multiple folks have said, the whole Doc and Wynonna relationship is just, talk about a roller coaster. It's the definition of one, from highest highs, lowest lows. But as you pointed out, Lisa, or the fact that we get to see Doc and Wynonna separate, grumbling to themselves, but still being themselves. When Wynonna puts on the jacket to have to go back to purgatory. And when Doc has to go out and make his stand because he's Doc Holliday, even if he wants to be Henry. I mean, these are true to the character moments that really are just beautifully done.
Yeah, there's only so far you can get away from being yourself, right? So, Marks.
Yeah, just echo some of the stuff you all said. I think they did a good job keeping the characters still familiar, but changing a little bit. I think that's a big challenge whenever you try to go to a sequel or whatever. There's a time gap, because you want there to be conflict in the character, but you don't want it to be too extreme that you're like, you don't recognize the character anymore, or you're disappointed that that's the direction that the character went in. Like Star Wars. Divorce, Psycho Kid, all that stuff. Anyway, so like, for example, Wynonna and Doc, they got some troubles, but it's not unpredictable. They would have troubles based on their past, right? So it's a little bit like, oh, I wish, when they left, it'd be all happy for them forever, but it's realistic that they're still struggling and dealing with some issues, but they're still in love with each other and still sticking together through that. So, and then of course, Waverly not being happy with, a normal life when she started very normal, and then she grew into, all in on the paranormal stuff. So it makes perfect sense that she wants that, but she also, doesn't want to disappoint her wife or be away from her. So I think all that made sense. They all still felt very familiar. Their dialogue, their chemistry together was still very, very well done. And I think they did a good balancing act there. And I have some issues with the villain too, but I'm sure we'll have that as a question.
Now here, Leah says that she thought each character was more evolved and real, still very true to the characters we love from the series, but more fleshed out, for lack of a better term. And that's a good way of looking at it too. And I think, I wonder if part of that is due to the fact that, when you have a series, this time-wise, this movie was the equivalent of 2 episodes, but I think, when you have a season of a series, you have this overreaching arc that goes over, the whole kind that you're going to have to deal with throughout the season. And in this one, it was like we had this one villain, so there was just that, but so it gave some time to also show some of these other developmental things, within relationships. And I wonder if that is part of the reason that Leah, and I'm sure other people, felt as though they were even more, more fleshed out, as you said. So,
well,
now,
I think that. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Carol.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think when characters are existing, and I'm thinking about this from a writing point of view, when characters are existing in chaos habitually and they are continuously going chaotic event, that develops you in one way. And then when you have to go into life that is not just a series of chaotic events to be dealt with, that forces you to develop in different ways, because it's really easy to hide. I mean, it is for me with my characters. It's easy for me to hide their challenges or their problems behind, oh, we have to take care of this chaotic event, but when characters have to live in real life, which is just the daily grind, it shows more of who they are and how they have to develop, because you're not able to hide who you are. Even though I do think all of our characters were doing some hiding.
Right. Okay. And Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, well, talking about a lot of these different things as we are that we enjoyed or maybe saw some challenges with. I'm curious to hear from you folks, kind of, if you had to select one thing that you thought worked really well in the film, and maybe one thing, maybe not so much. What might you kind of pick as your either ends of that spectrum? And Lisa, we'll let you go first.
So this might be a weird one, but I actually loved the interpretation of the Hellhounds. I was really interested to see how that was going to be brought forth, because we've seen a lot of different iterations of Hellhounds, and I really liked the visual structure of the Hellhounds and the way they moved and the way that, they fell down when they got shot, but then they got back up. Like, I know that's a weirdo thing, but I really like that. What did I not like? You guys, I did not like the last 15 minutes. Are we spoiling in this one? Are we not spoiling?
Oh yeah, we will talk more about specifics, but yeah, everybody, spoilers abound if we didn't say that.
Okay.
So yeah,
I did not like the end of I did not like the end in this movie of the Doc storyline. I actually had to stop, and I sat back and I was like, are you kidding me? And then I had to go back and watch it, and then I went back and watched it again, and I was like, oh my God, that really happened. Like, I don't know that I have fully processed that one yet, because I was like, oh my God. Like, it was bad when when we lost Dolls, but I'm struggling with this one. I'm not going to lie.
okay.
You're not alone there.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Carol?
So I'm okay. The I could piggyback on Lisa just for the sake of continuity here. My reaction the first time I watched this was, first off, I was just thrilled that we got to be back with these characters. It's wonderful. No matter what happens, it's great. And then it's like, yeah, no, that was not great. When it was over after the first watch, I said, yeah, some things I liked about it and some things I didn't, because I didn't care for that particular part of the storyline. I guess mainly because how are they going to write themselves out of it? But I want to address. I'll come back to that later in a question as well. But what did I most enjoy? I think was just the idea of being back there and getting to see those characters again. I got a kick out. You had mentioned earlier, Kevin, at the very beginning about the sign, and it's saying purgatory, or it says purgatory. You'll never want to leave, and I'm thinking, oh, sure. There are a lot of people who would prefer to leave. But one thing that I want to point out, I know we have some Nedley fans in our viewers, because I've seen the comments, but I just think it's very exciting and wonderful that Nedley's was the first face we saw in this movie, and he was the last that we saw. We got to hear Wynonna and Nicole talking as they were walking off looking for werewolves, or they were talking about werewolves, but it was Nedley's face we saw last. And I thought, yes, he's still with us, thank goodness. But for me, it was just the idea. It was kind of the complete whole of getting that, going back, getting, being there with them all again.
Yep. Marks?
So before I get negative, so lots of good stuff. It
Uh,
was great. It was great to see all the characters again. And that dynamic. I mean, that's the characters are the anchor to a series, and that's what makes these characters so memorable. And why, and they all felt the same, or they felt changed a little bit, but they are still the same characters. And so it was like coming back to revisit home, if it was called Purgatory with demons. So,
yeah.
so I think there was a lot of great dialogue, a lot of great scenes and chemistry between them all. Even though I have mixed feelings about the brutality of Mercedes' death, it was very memorable, and it definitely made the opening credit really memorable. I was like, oh, that's cool. Poor her, but that was kind of cool. But so all that's good. I feel like I almost feel like they're envisioning wanting this to be almost like a trilogy of movies or something like that. Maybe perhaps to deal with an arc with Wynonna kind of dealing with kind of finding her place after the series in a way, and getting control of some of her more self-destructive tendencies and stuff, and figuring out how to make her relationship work and how that works with her kid and everything else too. I feel like that's kind of like this overarching arc that maybe that they're thinking about. And I also feel like it's going to be like Return of Spock with Doc. Return of Doc.
Oh, yeah.
So, because there's lots of clues there that they may try to bring it back or find some way. But then that's what I hope, because that's one thing I didn't like. I didn't like that Doc died. I felt like that really hurt a lot of the big, finish, the big end of the finale, right? With those two, to have them come back and then he dies, that would really be sucky. But hopefully they'll get sequels and then they can correct that. So, and I think the only other thing I didn't like, I mean, it's like the last 15 minutes or so. I think it was Lisa who said that. I felt like it was kind of a little bit rushed, and to not just Doc's death, but also I feel like the villain, there's a few things about that villain, but also I feel like how she beat the villain didn't make, I feel like there's some leaps there in logic that I didn't quite understand. Maybe there's some rules that I forgot about from Wynonna Earp that would explain it to me, but I felt like I didn't quite understand how she got the hell to then fight her and then kill her and then do all that stuff. I mean, I understood the box. They told us, they clued us into the box early on, but how she was able to get the hell and back, I felt like was a little brushed. It was a little bit hand waved a little bit, and that was part of it. So,
Did you feel like when I saw Wynonna go in there with the box, I felt like Wynonna was ready to sacrifice herself.
Yeah.
She didn't expect to come back from that. So I agree with you that they didn't explain how she came back. I think this might be one of those, I call it like the Harry Potter thing, the power of love. The power of love brought her back. Waverly and Nicole brought her back, but she had no intention of coming back. So I was okay with no explanation on that one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Did they ever go to? I mean, I just was trying to understand if there's a portal for her to go there, or if she froze, or was trying to kill herself to her spirit to go there, but she didn't because her gun was there. Because obviously she used a physical item and lost a physical item, so she physically traveled there. Anyway, that's just my thing. So when you do urban fantasy, it gets a little funky with this.
Yes. But if they're going to have a trilogy, maybe they'll explain it, especially if part of the plot in the next movie or two is going to be trying to bring Doc back from, he's in a place like that, maybe. That could be a factor, and they may have to figure out how she did it. That might be, in order to try to save Doc, they may need to research that. So who knows? Maybe we'll find out.
Yeah. And I figure she needs to find a way to get her gun back, most likely.
Yeah.
It's a crucial part of the Earp legacy. So yeah, to me, I feel like there was probably, if I was her, I was going to be thinking about this and mapping out as a trilogy, at least of a storyline. So hopefully 2 people let them do that, because I would like to see that. If for no other reason, to see Doc return, because Doc's my favorite character.
Oh my God, I know. Well, I think it's interesting though. Like Wynonna was okay. She seemed like she was okay with letting go of Peacemaker, and I saw that as, regardless of whatever the writer, the writers may choose, that Wynonna was okay with moving on from being just the Earp heir. I think a trilogy would be interesting if history, the life, the world, whatever, said, no, you're going to be the Earp heir to the end, and she has to get the gun back. I don't know. Like, I felt like she was ready to give it up and try a different path. I don't know if it was because she lost stock or because she was just tired of, everything up to that point. And I felt like that was a hint to us that something else is coming where she's going to have to be the Earp heir, whether she likes it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, and I thought I would. We've summoned Wynonna. She was in hell, and now we've retrieved her. She's back. So
there you go. This is like Crowley. You just gotta say her name, and
that's right. Yeah,
from Supernatural.
And she's up on my shelf. I don't know if you can. She does have Peacemaker in her hand there. I don't know if you can see that. But
nice.
She's up on my shelf of Funkos between Gomez Adams and Ted Lasso. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of my interest. But yeah, so I had to make sure and bring out the Wynonna at least once. But
I almost bought a prop replica of the gun, of the Earp's gun.
Oh.
But then instead I got the first blade over there from Supernatural.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, if you had to choose, it's a tough choice, right?
It's a tough choice.
Right.
I did you get a chance to answer that one?
I think it's just Diana who's hasn't gone yet.
Oh yeah. So I felt like the whole movie was a story that Nedley was telling us, and I thought that was very cool. I noticed the same thing that you did, Carol, but I thought of it that way because it started with him and an incident that happened while he was there, and it ended with him and he was kind of privy to a lot of the conversations that went on, and the results of them. And as kind of an older and wiser guy, and having been a mentor to, most of these people and kind of been an ear to them, I think maybe he could have extrapolated, but it feels sort of almost like his take on things. Another thing is, what does the older character usually tell the younger characters in a story like this? It's all your actions have impact. Be careful what you do. That kind of wisdom typically comes from a character like Nedley in the first place. So I think that being kind of the lesson that the antagonist had to teach Wynonna was a key factor in that interpretation of the story too. But that being cool and kind of this overall thing, there were so many little moments, it's kind of hard to choose just one. I did love the fact that at the wake, how it was just this big drinking party, and how Mercedes is going to have a wake like that. She's not going to it's not going to be in some funeral home and everybody's crying and wearing black. No, they're having a big honkin' party down at the bar, and with these garish decorations and memorials that are, just out there. So I think that was pretty amazing, and nobody mentioned it. So I figured I would.
Yeah.
And the worst thing, everybody's already said it, and I don't want to repeat it because, like Lisa, I'm still in shock. And so is my spouse. We watched these things together, and he was just like, they did it. And I'm like, Jim.
It still has not fully, I've watched the
I don't know if this guy, he's like, did they do this? I'm like, no, I don't know. I can't tell you. Oh,
you think from a supernatural
with drag queens and a reverend? Yes, Dean.
Yes. Yeah, from the break. Yeah.
You think though, with the supernatural aspect that has come into urban fantasy, everybody can die and go to hell at least once, and so I'm kind of hoping that's what happens. I don't maybe Doc goes to hell and gets her gun back. I don't know, but I was like, this cannot be real. What is, when I kill a character, I'm very careful about who I kill. And so I keep looking at this thinking, what was the point? What is the reason? who's going to grow because of this? Is it because Wynonna needs this to grow? And I haven't come up with a great answer yet.
Well, someone said Jeremy, it was like, where was it? Doc had to die so Henry can live. Captain Cactus says this in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Alice,
yes, so he can be Alice's father because he can be Henry because he's Doc and he needs to be Henry. So I don't know, maybe that's the point. It could be something as simple as that, but it still sucks.
It does, and we're going to come back to that particular topic. But
do we have to?
Yeah, well, just a little, but from a different angle. I have a different angle for it. And then somebody made a comment that I found very interesting. We've all determined that we didn't care for that to happen. We don't need to talk about that again because we know we didn't like it. But and one of the things that a couple of people have mentioned, and just how did you actually feel about the villain this time out? Was she, a few of you have already said, but if you have anything else you want to say about that, or Kevin, do you want to address that? Did you find the villain to be sufficiently creepy enough, or things were pretty dire? How did you feel about that choice for a villain this time out?
Well, I think, and it came up in the conversation, it kind of, the villain, the backstory for the villain definitely came out of left field or almost out of nowhere. So that's what threw a lot of folks off, because a lot of folks, certainly if you're a longtime fan, are like, oh, well, I hope they bring Bobo or somebody we saw for an episode in season 2 or whatever. But again, realizing that this is its standalone movie as well, the villain to a certain degree had to be a bit of a standalone one that only had a slight connection, I think, in my mind. I think the actress did a great job. The fact that Peacemaker wasn't going to, take care of them, certainly not on the earthly plane, was good because it created, a much bigger problem to deal with. So I think that aspect of it worked fine once you kind of got settled in. I think for me as a viewer, there was a little bit of that early on, like, oh, I was kind of hoping it was somebody I knew. So there was a little, I don't want to say disappointment, but maybe a little bit of a detachment. And then as the story went on, I was like, okay, how are they going to take care of this one? Because she can really mess up them in a lot of ways. So that, that part of it worked fine once it kind of got rolling with what it was.
Okay. Marks?
So the actress did a great job because you could tell a bit of a difference between her performance in the past versus her full-on demon self and stuff,
right?
Or a big difference. So that was great, showing her acting chops. And then the character, I don't know, she gave me a little bit of vibes like Glory from Buffy in a way.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
no, good comparison.
Yeah, she had some Glory vibes there. And it did seem like it was out of nowhere in the past. But then again, I think, if there's any internal arc theme here with Wynonna, it's about her getting controls of her personality traits that are self-destructive. And that was a self-destructive moment in her life. And so she had to come to grips with that, and then also come to grips with how it's affecting her relationship with Doc. Because like I've always said, to people, like, if you compare Buffy, she's more like Faith than Buffy in personality and stuff, for a chosen one. And she has certain traits that have not left unchecked can let her go a little too, or self-destruct basically. And so I think in that sense of working in the theme of her internal goals and stuff, it makes perfect sense for this character to come into her past and have that connection and stuff. I think that's where they're probably coming from with it. But it was a little bit, I wasn't like super excited about it. I would have liked some kind of tie in with the past, some even vague one. It would have been kind of cool. And I love Bobo and stuff, and from previous seasons and stuff. And I still feel like that ending, how she beat him, was a little bit of a hand wavy thing, which always bugs me when people do that. And that's the problem when you make a villain super, super powerful. It's like, well, how do I defeat this person? So, and then if you're not careful, it can feel a little bit hand wavy. So, but yeah, anyway, for a standalone villain, she was fine. And the actress did a great job, though.
Christina says that I felt the same. I wish they had more time with it. And, you had mentioned that you felt as though it was kind of rushed. Diana, what's your take on our villain?
Once I got like a better idea of like what this villain was about, I thought it was good. It's kind of rare to see a maternal figure be portrayed as abusive on screen, and I appreciated that they did that in a show that's so like central, like the cast is central to women. It has female lead characters and such a good supporting cast of women. It's like she also did a good job of being convincingly benign when she had to be or needed to, seem like she's beneficent. But I think that even in the past, she wasn't any great person. She was still, she was running this foster home, but if she had any kind of altruism to her, it had long since left by the time Wynonna got there. And she'd become very jaded. So it's like, a character that was mildly, kind of more mildly evil, like, and then was like hellaciously evil and supernaturally evil later on. So, so she goes from like this mundane, kind of pitcher plant to like a really, out there sort of villain. Yes, the foster home visit when Wynonna goes there, and she goes into the building, it's a creepy place. So, and I am a horror fan, so I was like creeped out by it. So good job. Like good job on that. I was on the evil panel and I was like, oh, this place could have been an evil. Like it's pretty good.
Right. It could have been a setting for one of those stories.
Yeah.
Good,
so but yeah, my only like my complaint like from before was just that it was so loosely tied. Like nobody else seemed to know or remember who this woman was. I would figure with Nedry being so prominent in the film, he should have like known from her description who she was. Other things too, like because he saw her, like why didn't he recognize her? He's the sheriff. He's been with the police force this entire career, and at that time he would know who was running the local foster home. Why didn't he recognize her? Like that would have tied it in for me. That would have honestly fixed my issue if he'd known. And Mercedes being a juvenile delinquent would have been like, oh yeah, that foster lady, didn't you run the foster home? What are you doing here? You ran the foster home. How did you not age a day? What's your secret? Like, why didn't she like have some kind of enter like that? That didn't make any sense for that not to happen. It's a small town too. So yeah. But what are you going to do? Otherwise, I liked it. I thought it was a good villain. Yeah.
Lisa?
I actually didn't have a huge issue with the villain. I mean, she was very disconnected initially, but I kind of like those because I love it when the characters are rolling along and everything seems like it's relatively okay, for whatever their place in the world is. And then this person or this entity or this being that is carrying massive grudges just comes out of nowhere, ready to ruin your entire existence. Like I love those kind, of villains because they've been nursing their grudge as this one did for years. I love those because they have no F's to give and they can wreak so much havoc. And I love that. Like I love villains that are, just complete havoc inducers. Diana makes a really good point about how come nobody else recognized her. And I was thinking about it as you were talking, and I'm wondering if it's just because we didn't think about it. Like this was the foster home lady. she just was one of those characters where everybody's like, oh, whatever. Like, it just made her seem more random, but it wasn't, because there was just that one incident that changed her trajectory, the villain's trajectory, and that was the thing that she held on to for, what did Wynonna say? It was like 20 years.
It was 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, 20 years. I mean, that is some definite commitment to vengeance, which I love. I love that kind of thing. So I didn't have huge problems with her. I mean, I agree with Marks that there's definitely holes in some of the magic and how things played out, but overall, I didn't have any challenges with her.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got a comment here. Oh. Yeah, okay, I got the right one. Sometimes I'm trying to get one and I end up pulling up the wrong one, but this was the one I was looking for. Mina was stuck in hell for 20 years, and no one looked for her in comparison to Wynonna, who had her people pull her out. Right, and so that's like another, I'm sure, that would give her yet another problem to be upset with. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is that I have what I call some burning questions. And I'm going to read you a couple that I have, or like something that you felt as though was not either addressed or just something that seemed unanswered from this movie. And if you can either give me one thing of your own, or you can address one of mine. And anybody who's watching who wants to throw out a comment as to trying to answer anybody's burning questions, go for it. Okay, so here are mine. Why did Peacemaker work for Lafferty in the beginning, in the casino, in the backroom scene? Why did the gun work for Lafferty when it's not supposed to? Why wasn't Doc included in that list of 3 people that Wynonna cares the most about? You know, that Mina was trying to get items from. And when they were doing the plans for the Hellhounds, to be able to, we're going to take our stand and we're going to get them as they come in. Why they didn't talk about posting anyone over near where Alice was. So I'm just wondering, it's like, well, because the Hellhounds were geared towards coming to the people they were supposed to be getting. So was there really somebody out there watching, or, keeping an eye on Alice that we didn't know about, but it wasn't mentioned? So those were 3 things that kind of stood out to me. And as I said, if you have an answer to one of those, my panelists, grab that one. Or if you have another burning question, but doesn't have anything to do with Doc, because we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But but if you have another burning question that is burning even hotter for you, let's go with that. And Marks, you're first.
To try to answer the third one you had, I think Mina was still limited to the Devil's Triangle, right? So she couldn't get to Alice, right? Maybe, I think. So, I think so. I don't know. I don't think she could leave, so that's why. But your first one is really interesting, because I did perk up when I saw that, and then I kind of forgot about it because time went on with everything going on. I feel like that villain, I think they were wanting to do more with Lafferty. I don't know if they cut stuff out or if Lafferty's not really dead. I don't know if we got confirmation he died from his gunshot or not, and maybe he's going to come back later. Like he's an evil something, whatever.
Right.
Or if there was going to be a subplot there where he didn't just want, where he wanted the gun for his own use or something. I don't know. I think that's very interesting to see if either that's something that they're thinking about long term, like if there's more movies that they were setting up as a little clue for later, or if it's something that got cut that maybe was going to be explored more, but they had to cut it for time. Because I feel like Lafferty was kind of tacked on a little bit. Like I feel like they were going to do a little more with him. It was like, I'm here, I'm part of the team, and then Doc's like, nope, get out of here, you're leather and
don't
whatever. I
think
forgot what his
so,
name was. Yeah. And kicked him out. And then he showed up at the very end to shoot Doc. Yeah. But Doc, shot everybody else. So
Well, we have a couple of theories about Peacemaker. That Emily said there was initially more in the script about Peacemaker misbehaving because cons and grifters aren't peacemakers or Wynonna's purpose. But it didn't work for me. It was confusing. Yeah, I mean, the guy was a demon regardless. I mean, she's taken out some other demons who weren't doing anything, currently worse than what this guy was doing. So I didn't.
Oh, it's interesting. Maybe like the gun was like, hey, this guy deserves me more than you at that moment, trying to get to her.
And then, so Chelsea says that Peacemaker was being finicky because Peacemaker wasn't doing what it was meant to do either. She had lost her purpose. So, okay. Well, we've got a couple of answers for that. Let's see, Diana, what about you? What do you like? One of those was one of my burning questions also one of yours, or did you have another one of your own?
I figured that Mina wasn't focused on Doc because Alice was part of that family unit. And she figured that if Wynonna failed to take care of her own kid, that Doc might leave Wynonna. So maybe that hurting Alice was enough to break up the family unit there. But that was the only answer I really had. What I initially thought was in that like Lafferty was going to turn out to be, because Doc went to talk to him. I thought Lafferty was going to turn out to be some kind of like descendant of a person from Doc's time. And I thought Doc was going to have a talk with him about that. And I thought that I was expecting that. And then he lays on the stuff of knowing this. So I thought there was going to be something deeper there than it was. So it wasn't like what I expected to happen, but then I guess he conned me too.
Okay. Well, somebody has pointed out a mistake on my part that it wasn't Lafferty wasn't the one holding Peacemaker when it lit up. It was a different henchman. It was somebody named
Wasn't it the demon's son?
And for some reason I thought it was Lafferty. So
I got it mixed up too. My bad.
So okay, thank you, Earpers, for correcting my mistake. But still, it does beg the question that whoever the guy was, it wasn't supposed to work. Technically, right. It's not supposed to work for anybody else. Okay, Lisa.
I think as far as your burning question about Alice, I feel like Alice was left dangling out there and we didn't get any good answers. So that to me suggests that there's something else coming. Because if you're smart, you always leave things dangling to be addressed. But yeah, I wondered why nobody was going to look for Alice also. So I don't have a good answer for you. I think for me, the big burning question is what exactly is going on in Black Badge? Because Black Badge seems to have gone into total disarray. And how does that negatively impact, like the Earp people and that faction of the world? Like, how does that negatively impact all the things that Black Badge is supposed to be in charge of and protect, the rest of the world from? And honestly, what is that going to do to Nicole and Waverly's relationship? Like, they're going to do the long distance marriage. But how does that impact their marriage? Sorry about that. I blipped again.
That's okay. It was only brief. We didn't lose you for long. Yeah, that's also something that I'm sure I know a lot of people were unhappy about. Kevin?
Well, only because I've had fun for close to 10 years now talking about Peacemaker that I'll kind of stick on that one. And lots of great conversations in fandom over the years about the fact that potentially Peacemaker in and of itself is sentient, and it does whatever the hell it wants.
Right.
Not just, what we've seen from the lore and so forth. Because as we know, Peacemaker has lit up in different colors for different people,
Right.
for different
Yeah.
reasons.
Blue. Yeah. We had blue for some other,
Yep, we've
was it
had,
for
and
vampires or something in one of the early seasons? Yeah.
we had it on the whole end of season 2 with Waverly trying to use it on Rosita. And even when it wouldn't work for her, and then it would, and then when she was still holding it, it buzzed and made her drop it. So I don't think at least in my mind, anything that Peacemaker does at any point in this universe now, whatever the heck it wants.
There's no surprise there.
There was no more surprises when it comes to Peacemaker for me and what it will or won't do.
Okay. Well, did you have another burning question of your own?
Obviously just where we're going to go from here.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is a big burning question. And it's a good segue because now you're up. You've got the next question.
Well, yeah. And actually the one I was going to ask, we've really addressed it in various other conversations. Carol, if you want to kind of go to your big finish.
Okay.
Because you got a couple of big topics I think would be more valuable to be talking about.
So, yeah, we've talked about Doc, and we've all determined that we didn't care for him dying. Regardless, a couple of people have pointed out in the chat, and I did hear this at the time when the movie first came out, that Tim actually, was the one who suggested this particular incident to be, or I don't know, to Emily, I suppose, since she's the one who's ultimately writing things. But regardless of the reasoning, I think upon watching it the second time, I started really wondering, is he really dead? Because it looked as though he died. But then, the next scene is 2 weeks later, and Wynonna's we never got to see him at a funeral being buried. You know what I'm saying? That of course they only had 90 minutes. I understand that. But so I've been wondering, well, are they pretending he's dead for some reason and he's not really dead? Someone in the comments suggested that perhaps he's the sexy werewolf that Nicole and Wynonna were talking about. So I guess that makes you wonder, well, what werewolf turned him so that this could be the case, whatever. But so there are lots of possibilities and theories. But so my question for you is, did you feel as though he really is dead? Not in will they bring him back, but is he in fact dead in the, within the context of what we saw? Was he dead or is he dead? And Marks, you're first this time, I think. Or did you go first last time? I've lost track. I think Diana, you're first. Okay.
Well, as far as sexy werewolves go, Doc has already been a sexy vampire, so why not a werewolf, right?
Right.
He's kind of a munchkin. He collects different things to be, so I wouldn't be terribly surprised. It could also be code. They could be saying, "Oh yeah, it's that sexy werewolf." Wink, wink. Maybe it's not really a werewolf at all. Maybe it's just Doc, or something. But it's also possible his body's just not there, and he is maybe not dead. Maybe he's in some kind of stasis, and Black Badge has him, or Waverly has is bringing him to Europe. He's been shipped over there. So if they do another movie, then I'm sure we'll find out one way or the other. Is he a werewolf? Is he in a box? He's Schrodinger's stock. As far as I'm concerned, that he's Schrodinger's stock at this point. Adriana here has a point. She said, Wynonna never said Doc was buried. She only said the box and Peacemaker and Mina were down there. So yeah, she has a marker that says Doc, and that could also be in case anyone comes looking. Well, here's his grave. He's dead, right? But she's not going to tell anyone he's with Jeremy and Waverly trying to figure out how to bring him back, because Black Badge is infighting, and you never know who's working for them.
Okay.
So that could be a bit of subterfuge, or he could be a sexy werewolf. Yay!
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know. Lisa.
I think for the time being, Doc is truly dead. I think that he died. I don't think that, I cried when I watched that. I cried both times that I watched that. I think because I've grown up with Supernatural, and just the urban fantasy, or as Marx calls it, like the hand wavy, I think something is going to bring him back. I think that him dying and really dying will be a catalyst for change. I don't know what it is. I just think you don't die and things just go back to the way they were. But do I think he's really dead? Yes, I do think he's really dead. I think he will come back when it is not expected. He will accidentally come back, and then that will be another catalyst for another piece of the story.
Okay. Kevin.
As much as it pains me to say it, yes, I agree. I do think Doc is dead as of the end of this movie. That's all I'll say.
Oh, okay.
And that's all you're going to say.
Emily is too creative, and there is too much possibility in an urban fantasy setting to think that we will not see Tim Rose on again if we are lucky enough to get another film. But I think for the true what's the right word I really want to find? I mean, to have him be anything but truly dead just takes away so much from this film that I don't think they will do a trick of, oh, look, he's over here, or he's the sexy vampire, or I just think that part will hold, but they'll find a way that we'll get to see him again.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, that's just my gut.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree too. I think he's truly dead at this stage. I think there's a lot of clues though that you're going to try to find a way to bring it back. And I figure maybe if they're having a second movie, either that movie is going to be about getting him back, or it's his return, however it happens, will be a catalyst for whatever the big event is, maybe tied with Black Badge or something. However that happens. So, and he'll probably go change. He'll probably be like, either he'll be all messed up or whatever from like being in hell, or he'll be all divine and chill because it'd be in paradise or heaven or whatever. Be part angel or something. Who knows? They go any direction they want with it. But I think that definitely, to me, there's a lot of hints there that they're going to try to bring him back. And I really hope they do, because I feel like that finale of the whole series, one of the most memorable moments of it all, is them two riding off on that motorcycle together. And I would really hate for them to kind of tarnish that or ruin that a little bit by having him die in this movie. I just feel like that's a sad way to end that romance. So hopefully we'll get a second movie.
Well, if I might jump in there, the thing that I find interesting for me, though, as a viewer is, and this was kind of part of that question that I put aside, but the series ended on such, as you pointed out, a high note. I mean, such a put it on the shelf and appreciate it in perpetuity as a fan of this show or of well-made shows. But we also know that's not real life. So it comes back to, what do you enjoy most? What do you take away most from a story or a set of characters? That it ended with a bow on top, like real life usually doesn't, or that you can appreciate that there was a time when everything was perfect, but that's not the way it stays. So you appreciate that the storytelling actually went there.
Mm.
I appreciate my Doc's alive.
Well,
I don't want your chocolate in my peanut butter. Got it, Mark. Okay.
Just
but I think that raises a good point, which is kind of to the question that you decided to forego asking, but the that there is that feeling, that there is a juxtaposition of feelings between this is the way the series ended, and thank goodness for that,
You'll
because
always have that. You can always just watch
right.
till that point and not rewatch the movie.
Right. Well, no, but what I'm saying is that at least at the time when it aired, we didn't know if we'd ever see it again in some form. So it was good that it ended like that at the time. Now, when there's the possibility that maybe something else can happen, it feels, I think, obviously there were there are enough things left open at the end of this one, some good. I mean, yes, I'm not too concerned about Waverly and Nicole being apart for 2 months, while she is overseas. It was in Egypt or something. Is that where she was? Anyway, where she was going with Jeremy, and I think that's not what I would consider a bad thing. But certainly having the death of a main character always kind of hangs over anything you do. I mean, it's and I like Mercedes, but the Mercedes death was not didn't have the same impact, at least not on me. It didn't. As Doc, because I was like you, Lisa. I was kind of sitting there and I was like, oh no, they didn't. How did they do that? How could they? So I'm just glad that at the time, that I think that the series finale of the 4 seasons that we got on Sci-Fi, I think that it's good that it did end where it ended, because of those feelings that it gave you, that that okay, well, everybody's going to be all right. They still have some challenges, but at least it left people in a warmer place, I guess you could say. Now, there was somebody up here, Chelsea, who had said that she thinks Doc is really dead, that the characters are holding on to hope that this is not permanent. And I agree. I think that, there were a lot of clues given, about Wynonna telling Jeremy, well, you got to see what you can do about this, pointing at the grave. And I fully am on board with all that idea. I hope that if it does come back, that we will.
They're in Egypt, so obviously we're gonna get Doc as a sexy mummy.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. Or at least have some kind of mummified stuff going on.
Hey,
Now,
how many times did Buffy die? Okay, so come on.
Yeah. And Doc is someone that was like immortal / then a vampire. He's gone through stuff.
Nope.
So,
and
he's missing mermaid or something.
Yeah, there you go. Now there was someone here. Let's see, that says that Tim is the greatest Earper of us all.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's and while we're here, I'd just like to give 2 shouts out for Surreal Estate as well, because I really enjoy that show, and I think it's a lot of fun to see him doing something completely different, a completely different character, and I have enjoyed that, but I digress. Okay, so one of the reasons that Kevin and I wanted to do this panel this particular week was because everybody who's watched the movie has seen the ads. Well, we've all seen several, but you've seen the ads that there is going to be an Audible drama. And of course, then the articles came out after that. They did a good job of keeping that one a secret until the movie aired and people found out. So we're going to get an Audible audio drama that comes out Thursday. And I was trying to find some article. I I remembered that it's supposed to be this called Tales of Purgatory, and it's supposed to be the episodes are going to take place in that 2-year time span between where the series ended and before, leading up to the events of the movie. And I think that's going to be, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And what I'm not too sure of, I believe that it's supposed to be 6 episodes. Is that correct, Kevin? Do you remember?
The info they've dropped is that we're getting 4 hours of content. How it's
Right.
multiple, it's tales. So, and they've got writers involved that have written for the show. So it's folks who know the characters very well, but it should be some different stories.
Right. And they're supposed to be completely different. It's like, okay, these are some things that happened in between these 2 time periods. And it sounds as though they are probably going to release them all at once. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. And I wanted to do this panel before those started so that we could talk a little bit, just briefly about what we hope we see there. And then, also to get people who might view this to be excited, because if we waited too long to do this one, everybody'd be more interested in talking about the Audible stuff. So it made more sense. But we will have another panel probably next month talking about the audio dramas. It'll be, we'll do just the one panel going over the different ones. And if there are 6 separate ones, there would make like 40 minutes each or something, which is possible. But for some reason, I either read or heard somewhere that it was 6, and I may be wrong about that. So I don't know how they're going to divide them up. But first, let me ask everybody here on the panel, how many people are going to actually check it out? Who's going to be paying attention to the Audible audio drama? You can raise your hand.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, okay. Kevin,
Yeah.
Okay, obviously.
Yeah,
I have to look into whether there's transcripts or something, because sometimes I have hard time with retaining information that way. So
the
I'll have to-
auditory only.
yeah,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has not been, I have not heard that, but who knows? Lisa, what about you? You get more doc that way.
Absolutely get more doc. Well, if it's Tales of Purgatory, are we going to get more doc? Because how much time do Wynonna and Doc spend in Purgatory? It didn't sound like as much when you watch the movie. They had another mission that they were working on, as far as like what their goal was with all of their shenanigans. I'm definitely going to listen to it. I'm excited to hear. I'm just excited to hear how it ties from that last, as Mark said, from that last piece where we saw Doc and Wynonna right away, to when we pick up and they're in the place that they are, and Waverly and Nicole have built this little, homemaker's nest. Like, how did we get there? So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how it ties in.
It sounds
what we
as
already
though, yeah, and I found some articles recently that I hadn't seen before, that it sounds as though when it begins with Doc and Wynonna recounting some stories, like they're supposed to be going to do something. They're supposed to be trying to get somewhere, and then something happens where they can't. So instead they end up like telling these stories, but all of the regular and original cast will be in it, including the now dearly departed Mercedes. So she'll be part of it as well. So that would be fun. But as I said, I had not realized that aspect of it until reading this more recent article. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. So we hope that anyone here, I haven't seen hands up amongst our commenters, but my guess is that all of you are diehard Earpers, and you will be checking out the Audible drama as well. And you will hopefully join us when we discuss it. I think that we were very fortunate to get to get this movie. I mean, I know that they all felt as though we were they were, I mean, all of the cast and writers, everybody involved, they were very excited to be doing it again. Hopefully we will get more. And I kind of like the idea that Marks and Lisa both pitched that it would be great to have more of the movies as kind of a trilogy. But in the meantime, we are going to have the Audible dramas, and that will be, something to look forward to. And I hope that everyone who has been following the show will enjoy that. It's a little bit different format for people who are used to something visual. I'm a big Buffy fan, as some of you probably know, and the Slayers audio drama was very interesting, but it was very different to have to pay close attention, from an auditory standpoint rather than what you're seeing or reading. And so it's a different take on it, but I'm very excited to see how it works out. And I think, everyone is probably excited that at least there's new content, whether or not, whatever the format is, right? So I do want to thank my wonderful panelists for being here tonight. I know everybody has a lot going on, and thank you for tuning in. We hope that you will join us again. If you follow us on Facebook, follow the track, please do, because that's where information gets posted first. And that page does stay active all year long. That's where you'll find links to these events that will turn up on our YouTube channel. We have lots of past content that you can see. I don't know the exact number of panels. I should look that up so that I know, but we started doing virtual panels during 2020. And that's something I said, hey, why not continue this? So I continued this. And, I'm very grateful to everyone who's ever watched or commented, whether it's during the panel or later, but we will continue to do that. And if you follow the Facebook page, you'll know ahead of time, when a particular panel is going to be. So thank you very much, everyone. My wonderful panelists, thank you. You guys are lovely, and thank you to all of the viewers, whether it's been with us or later. And we hope that you will join us again sometime in November. Stay tuned for a date. Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Take care, all.
Night.